just a bit about me so you can see what I've done. Entry level magician, obviously your favorite entry level magician, Braden Carlisle. So this is just a bit about what I've done. We've got I've started performing magic at open mics in 2018, so I've been doing it just about 6 years because I did start in April of 2018, so a little shy of 6 years, but I've been doing it for a while. Since then, I've performed over 1,000 shows, both free and paid, since I've started performing. It's a lot of shows sometimes, and it's very dry other months. Like January, for example, is a very slow month. It's right after the holidays, but over those past 5.5 years, almost 1,000 shows. I have to check my calendar. It is honestly too many. I founded a monthly show called the Boulder Magic Show. I do it in Boulder, Colorado. It's run over 60 months and 150 shows for over 20,000 audience members across those 5 years. During COVID, we had to go virtual, so we were able to still run the show. It was a little weird. It was definitely a different sort of experience with the virtual shows that I was doing, but let me still do magic in a time where a lot of people, didn't get to go outside, but I still got to bring joy to people, which is my favorite reason for doing magic in the first place. I hosted a podcast, Awesome People Talking. Don't look it up. It's really bad. It was 5 years ago, according to these pictures. But I had amazing guests like Piff the Magic Dragon and Shin Lim and a ton of other people that magicians know their name, but lay people probably wouldn't know their names. But these are probably the two most famous people to like the general public. They both have shows in Vegas right now. I was able to make some amazing connections from these guys. They're super awesome. I wrote and published a magic theory book called Agree to Disagree. Please don't buy this. It is an ebook that I wrote 4 years ago. It's just got some magic theory. If you really want to read it, DM me. I'll send you the PDF. Don't go buy this. I went on multiple international tours. The text is gone, but I went on multiple international tours. I've gone to Canada twice. I've gone over to Europe a few times. It was really fun. Magic has taken me all over the world, and it's truly a blessing to be able to do this. I worked for a magic company. Which one? I don't know if I can say. Just kidding. It was Vanishing Ink. They're a super awesome magic company based in California. I worked for them for almost 2 years, designing magic, creating magic, and shipping magic in the warehouse to people all over the world. It was super fun, and I worked with some amazing people on that team. I still get in touch with them, and even as recent as last month, I guess last month would be this December, they called me back in to work a little bit. I've worked privately for some amazing companies and brands. This is just, I'm not trying to like brag about what I've done. It's just showing you that I do know what I'm talking about. I worked for the Broncos, the Denver Broncos. I worked for the Olympics. Their training center is in Colorado Springs, so they've had me down to do close-up magic for a few of the Olympic teams. I've worked for a bunch of awesome companies. And all the behind-the-scenes stuff, like all the behind-the-scenes business stuff, too much to list out here, but all the back-end stuff like booking shows, getting a tour going, money, taxes, all the boring stuff. Just a lot of everything behind the scenes. But most importantly, I took Atrioc to the Magic Castle. And that's it. That's a little bit about me, entry-level magician Braden Carlisle. That's a little bit about me. That's all I've got prepared on this little PowerPoint, but hopefully that shows you guys a little bit about what I do.
Awesome. All right, from here we're going to go into just straight question and answer. So if you want to ask questions in this lecture stage chat, Braden will answer them.
Austin area, was Agree to Disagree ever printed physically? I printed 100 copies for myself to sell after shows or for giveaways. It was printed physically, but I have about 80 of those copies in a storage unit somewhere. So it was printed physically, but it never really sold well physically. I think of the digital editions, if you're curious, I sold about 80-ish copies of it. I would have to check the Magic store account to see how many I sold, but I do know that I sold just over like $400 worth of books, which was awesome for me. I'm like, oh, I published a Magic product and people bought them. It was sick. Yeah, what does it take to go beyond an entry-level magician? Honestly, I don't know. I thought I was beyond an entry-level magician, but apparently I am not. That's what the community has granted me. No, I don't know. Entry-level magician, I think, is when you're just starting out, you're performing. I started out by performing at open mics. I know a ton of people start out by charging like $50 to do a birthday party, just something really cheap. So they still get paid for their time, but inexpensive enough that not that they'll do a poor job if you're just starting out. You just might not do the best job. The show won't be super polished. I mean, in there's examples to every rule for sure, but the show might not be polished. It might not be written out fully. You're seeing what works. You're seeing what style of magic you want to do. Are you more comedy magic? Do you want to do mentalism and mind reading? What is your vibe? So I take entry level to sort of mean you might be getting paid, you might be doing free shows, you might be doing open mics. I don't know what you're doing. I started as well as open mics performing at senior citizen homes because I could charge them $100 and they would get a 30-minute show. And sometimes they'd be really happy with that. And then sometimes, I remember one time there was a very specific one early on when one of the residents in the back of the home said, "Hey, how much longer is your show? I want to watch TV." And I was performing in front of the TV, so they had to turn off the TV for me to do my show. And that was when I knew I wanted to be a magician.
Do you want to explain where the entry level magician thing came from?
Oh, sure. The entry level magician thing came from a stream. I took Atrioc to the Magic Castle, and he recounted the story on stream. I forget what even the context was, but he called me an entry level magician, and chat thought that was really funny because I was in chat, and they're like, "Oh, he's crying. He's absolutely you destroyed him." And then there was a clip reposted of it, and in all these Discord servers now is I'm the entry level magician. It's a really funny bit. Have I ever paid secrets to a routine or some sort of conference to learn new tech? I absolutely have. So the company that I worked for, Vanishing Ink Magic, they publish books that anybody can buy. You go to vanishinginkmagic.com. They publish books that anybody can buy. They publish digital downloads. They send off and sell materials. Now they do design magic for magicians who are working in Vegas and cruise ship magicians and all these different types of big names. They will custom design magic tricks. There's Vanishing Ink is the one I worked for, but you also have companies like Theory 11 and Illusionist, kind of like Illusionist, but it's online. So they put an E, they're the edgy guys, whatever. Murphy's Magic, and then there's all sorts of individual people who design magic themselves and then sell it to the magic community. And that is 100% of where most of my show comes from. I am not somebody who wants to sit there fiddling with cards and creating my own magic tricks. What I like to do is, of course, pay. I'm a big proponent of paying the creators for their time and work because there is not a lot of magic creativity, where they publish their secrets. It's a lot of people will take the secrets and perform it in their own show. So if somebody has a good idea, you've got to buy the trick. You can't just say like, "Oh, I know how that works, so it's mine." But that's a whole other tangent. But I purchase the effects. I'll read it in a book. I'll get a video download. I'll go to somebody's lecture. I'll go to a conference. And then I'll take what I've learned and I'll write my own routine. So I don't mind if the trick isn't mine, like if what's happening, the magic aspect of the trick isn't mine. What's important for me is I've written all the dialogue, I've written the script, I've done the blocking. I might take a card trick and instead of using playing cards, I'll use Uno cards. So I might even change the prop. What I like to do is take existing tricks and sort of make them my own. Also, for the conferences, there's a few conferences every year. There's Magic Live in Vegas. That's the biggest one. It's in Vegas, so a lot of Vegas magicians will come in and teach their shows or lecture on their shows or just tell stories. Vanishing Ink does one in Ohio every January. I'll be going to that in 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks ish, called Magi Fest, and it's a really fun one. It's sort of a smaller one. It's about 300 to 400 people. They fully buy out a hotel, and it's just 3 days of magicians who don't put on enough deodorant in one room learning magic tricks. But every year I go there and that's where I've met a lot of really cool connections, and it's really fun to see my friends because I have these magic friends all over the country, and we never get to hang out with each other. I mean, in fact, that's kind of why I created the Boulder Magic Show, that I talked about earlier. My monthly show in Boulder, I fly out a magician every month, and so I open the show. I do 25 minutes on the show, and the magician that I fly in does about 45 minutes. So it's really fun. I get a recurring audience because it's a different magician every month, but I also get to see my friends, and it's super fun and sustainable. And that show has paid my bills for 5 years. But conferences are really cool to go to. I'm going to one in DC later this year. There's a few across the country that happen every year. There's one in Denver. It shut down, unfortunately, but I used to like going to that because it was right in my backyard. Um,
What portion?
Aiden. Oh, yeah, what's up?
What portion of the magic tricks in your acts do you think are like original, like you came up with yourself, and like what portion do you think you are like you think that someone else came up with, and do you think that's typical for like the average magician at your level?
So I fully will admit to having come up with 0% of my routines. Every single trick in my show is something that anybody can go out and buy and practice and learn. What's different about my show is that a lot of these tricks either don't come with written words, like to say on stage, they don't come with a script, or they come with a script. And if you just do that script verbatim, you'll be doing it the same as other magicians. So what I do is I like to take an effect. I don't even like read the script that it comes with. I don't watch the video. I just learn it and I will write my own thing for it, or I'll take the props that it comes with. Like I used this example earlier, but I really like this example. Instead of doing a card trick with playing cards, I do one with Uno cards, and I make it about, oh no, you never have enough draw twos, and so instead of doing a perfect poker hand deal, I'll deal somebody like 100% draw twos of the deck, and then I'll get all wild cards. So even though they have draw twos, I still beat them. Like it's a silly little routine, but even just changing it a little bit, just changing the prop that's used, I think is really important. There, I have a friend or two friends. They perform in the UK. Their names are Morgan and West. They took a card trick, and instead of using 52 cards, they use 52 rings. And the effect is normally a piece of ribbon passes through the entire deck, but only tears through one card, and that's the card that they chose. Whereas they will get a ring from a volunteer from the audience, throw it in a paper bag with a bunch of other rings, thread the ribbon through a bunch of the rings, and then they twirl the ribbon around in the air, and the only ring that stays on is the volunteer's ring. So it's not necessarily about being original in terms of the method of the trick, but the execution of the trick. And so the method, none of my show is original, but the execution, I would say all of it's original. And for the second part of your question, I don't think there is a real normal. Um, I do theater shows. Some people might do close-up shows, which is highly interactive, so there's not necessarily a script and they're just doing the card tricks verbatim. Some people are doing grand silent illusions where they're sawing somebody in half, but they're doing it to music, and there's not really much to change up on that. So it's just certain things, certain people do things differently. And I like to think that, I'm all original, but also, like I said, none of my methods are original. I don't know if any of that made sense.
It made sense to me.
Okay.
Aiden asks, has magic always been a passion that you turned into a career, or was it something you stumbled into?
So when I was a freshman in high school, so about 14 years old, I got into the drama club at my school. And I was never anybody who wanted to perform. I never tried out for a school play. I never did anything other than marching band. Like I really liked music, but I discovered drama. They did Legally Blonde the musical, and I went to it just with a friend who was part of the set crew. And they invited me to go sit in the audience and watch it with them. And I thought, oh, whoa, this is really cool. Musicals are amazing. And so the next play that they did was Beauty and the Beast my sophomore year, and I joined the drama club. But I worked in lighting, I worked in sound, I worked in set crew, and I helped with the costumes. This is all important, I promise. The costume shop that we got our costumes from had a little magic corner in it. So sophomore year of high school, we were doing costumes for Beauty and the Beast, and we go over to the costume shop, and I saw a magician performing at the magic counter. He was doing a coin trick that I later learned was called Scotch and Soda, and it was really cool, and I made him show me a bunch of tricks, and I felt bad, and so I bought a $10 trick deck of cards, and I took that to school after practicing it, and then I started looking on YouTube and I found rubber band magic tricks because I didn't actually have a normal deck of cards. I only got that $10 trick deck of cards. But I found rubber band magic tricks, tricks you could do with Sharpies and pins, tricks you could do with regular coins, just stuff I had around the house. And I just kept bringing it to school and showing my friends, and then showing my teachers, and then showing my family. And so sophomore year, I just got really into magic. And then I graduated. It was never going to be anything I worked in. I loved the theater. I was going to school for theater for a communication degree, with a focus on theater. But my ex and I broke up, and it was sort of a thing that we had talked about where I wasn't going to try to ever do magic shows for money. It was just going to be a hobby, and we broke up. And I'm like, oh, in a sort of like post breakup rebellions, I went and did an open mic, and it was the first time I had ever performed in front of anybody. And I did, I guess, an okay job. I thought then that I killed it, but I did an okay job, and I just started going to open mics a lot, and then people started hiring me. So it was sort of a hobby turned into a career by accident.
That's super cool. Iron asks, what direction do you see practical magic taking in a world that is increasingly reliant on digital technology? Do you think that sleight of hand will still exist in its current form in 10 plus years?
I absolutely do. That's a great question, though. I think that because of the increase in technology, that people will still want to go to live shows. I mean, we have amazing blockbuster movies, but people still want to go see musicals and plays because it's just a different medium. But I do want to show you. I wonder if this will work if I can do this. Um, there is an incredible illusionist that was on America's Got Talent recently. I'm trying to pull this up. We'll see if, yeah, right here. Okay. I'm going to share my screen. I hope this works. But there, his name is Trig Watson, and he incorporates technology into all his tricks. So you can see like it's like a little hologram. The juice is flowing out and going onto the large TikTok feed. I don't really personally know how it works. I've got like certain ideas and theories. You can see he's just interacting with a TV screen. And I think it's really cool, but personally, I also think that I don't know if I'm going to a live magic show, I don't know if I want to watch a screen, if that makes sense. But I also know that there's decks of cards with RFID chips in them so that you can put them on a table. The table will scan the card and it will ping your like Apple Watch or something, and you will know exactly what card the person has chosen. So I think there's a place for technology in Magic, but I don't think it will ever replace current sleight of hand. I mean, if you watch a master at card tricks, you'll never see what they're doing. Whereas with a magician like Trig Watson, who is an incredible illusionist, he's doing magic openly with technology. It doesn't take a giant leap for the audience, even if they're wrong, to say, "Oh, the TV was doing the magic," because it doesn't matter if they're right or wrong. At the point where they think they know how it works, the magic is lost.
Austinary asks, I think you mentioned this briefly, but was there any ventures you took during COVID to try to fill in the drop of shows due to COVID?
Yes, I did a ton of virtual magic shows. But Austin is specifically talking about I did foam parties for children. It's like it's exactly what it sounds like, foam parties that you might see in a nightclub, but I did it for kids at summer camps and daycares and birthday parties because it was socially distant. And it's still going strong to this day. So it's like my little second side hustle.
Foam parties or phone parties?
Foam, FOAM, as in magic. I can here, I'll share my screen again. This is a foam party. Just blowing bubbles. Kids having fun outside.
Logic involved in these, or just
No,
foam?
not at all. It was when COVID hit, people canceled magic shows because of safety reasons, obviously. So I just did this because I had a friend who was doing these in Las Vegas, and none of his stuff was getting canceled because this was outside. It used soap and was socially distanced. So I started this during COVID along with the virtual magic shows, and it did well enough that it's still going today. I don't do many of the foam parties myself anymore. I have staff members like my one of my really good friends and my brother-in-law that goes out and does the foam parties for me.
So you've contracted it out.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, Takenator asks, do you would you explain how a trick you perform works? What about someone else's trick?
I would 100% explain how a trick that I can perform works. Like I'll show you. Let's see. I've got a deck of cards here. Let's turn on my camera. Here we go. This may work. Let's see. If I've got these cards are dirty and old. We'll see if they work though. If I've got the 10 right here and then I hit it just like that, it turns into the queen. And the way this works, this is a card trick that is old enough to be in a book that is in the public domain. So I'm super happy revealing it. You're holding it. It's called the snap change. I'll show you a side view. You're just bringing your finger back and flicking it just like that. Do it really fast, and it looks like the card changes. This is the trick that is featured in the very first scene of the hit movie Now You See Me. You just do it really fast, and then you're very, very dirty. Your hands are dirty. You just got to do it at the right angle. But a trick that somebody else performs, I probably would not, unless they told me I'm able to. I do teach magic classes, and I have contacted a ton of magicians that I really respect, and I've asked them if I can teach their tricks. And again, just like the snap change, that's a really cool trick that people still use. I mean, it was in the movie Now You See Me, but yeah, it was on David Blaine's first special even. Um, but I would not reveal somebody else's trick. But it's also a fine line. Like, I'm not trying to say I would never do it like as a hard and fast rule when I'm talking magic with my friends. Of course, we're going to talk about methods. We're like, oh, have you seen John Gustafaro, for example? He published a book recently and it's got a really cool card trick in it. We're like, oh, have you seen that? Oh, yeah. Do you know how it works? No, I haven't read the book. Oh, let me tell you how it works. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. So when I'm talking with somebody who knows magic methods, sure. And if a friend wants to get into magic, sure. I guess it mainly is for if somebody's asking for the right reasons, I guess. If somebody just says, "Hey, how does this work? I want to like bust this magician." Of course, I'm not going to tell them. If they're really interested, I'm always going to tell them. But I think I'm an anomaly in that. A lot of people my age grew up watching like shows like The Masked Magician and looking at card trick tutorials on YouTube. So people who are into magic that are my age are only into magic because people revealed the tricks. It used to be you have to go to a local magic shop and ask the dealer if you could like get into the back room where they kept the good secrets, and it was such a boys club. And I think freedom of information is great. If somebody wants to get into magic, I'm never going to be the reason that they don't know how a trick works.
Austin Area asks, are you able to throw cards?
Not as good as some people. Oh, what's his name? Rick Smith Jr., I think. Rick Smith Jr. can throw cards insane. He's actually created his own cards called the Banshees, and they are plastic cards that have holes in them so that when you throw them, they whistle. You can see right here they've got holes in them, so when they throw them, when you throw them, they whistle. I can't throw cards, but I can throw cards well enough. Here's a Rick Smith Jr. short.
Do you want to learn how to throw playing cards like
I don't care about learning.
Make scissors with on top,
Let's see.
fingers below.
He'll throw it
bend
super
your
far in
wrist
just a
and
second,
Flick your wrist
I
at
think.
the target.
Right there. Yeah, he's throwing it at so hard that it bounces or it sticks into styrofoam, which is crazy. I was at a conference that he was at, and he was throwing cards across the auditorium, getting them to stick into a watermelon. It was insane.
All right. Rabbit Missile asks, how long does it usually take for you to write a new routine or trick? And do the props affect the time for learning the tricks?
I hate to be vague with all my answers, but it kind of varies. If I'm doing something that's very sleight intensive, like a magic trick with a deck of cards where it's super sleight of handy and I have to be doing a bunch of secret moves right in front of everybody, like a close up magic trick, that is going to take a lot longer for me to learn than anything on stage. If it's on stage, it's a lot more forgiving, which is kind of weird to think about because there's way more people watching you from every angle. But if you're doing a close up card trick one on one, there's nowhere else for somebody to really look. So they end up looking right at your hands when you're doing the moves. And also, I think it's a matter of I perform way more on stage than I do close up. So anything that is a close up magic trick is going to take me a lot longer to practice than a stage magic trick. But the inverse is true of the script. If it's a close up magic trick, there's not much of a script to do. It's a lot more of just like, here, take a card, write your name on it. We're going to find it. It's a lot more conversational back and forth because you're only doing the trick for 1 to 5 people at a time. And there's just a lot more interaction. Whereas on the stage, almost everything I say, I'd say about 90 to 95% of what I say is fully scripted. I've got my entire script written out. When I get a volunteer up on stage, I have the blocking written out about where they'll stand on stage. I have in the script, in between the actual lines of dialogue, exactly when I pick up and set down certain props. I have music cues, I have lighting cues. So if it's a stage routine, I might be able to practice and perform it in one day, but to get it fully performance ready, it's going to be a long time. Whereas with a close up magic trick with the cards, it's just going to take me a lot longer to learn how to do it because I'm not a card guy. And if it's a coin trick, it's over. I don't do coin tricks. So if you had me even just a simple task of making a coin disappear, that's going to take me a week minimum.
All right. Tanknator asks, what's the difference between an illusionist and a magician?
And then the rest of that question too. Yeah, the Arrested Development reference. I love it. Love Job. Job is my favorite fictional magician. 100%. But yeah, so there's definitely different jargon in the magic world. For most people, magician works. There's when I say illusionist, that means like we saw Trig, he was performing with an apparatus. And that's kind of what illusionist means in the magic world, is that like somebody's getting sawed in half. Somebody, you're going into a box and making somebody disappear. You have that giant flat screen TV that you're interacting with magic. It's things that play to an audience of like over 1,000 people without having to have a screen to amplify it. That's the most basic definition. Then there's close up magic, which can be performed for about 1 to, I'd say, like 15 people. It's just very, very close up, very dynamic. Um, you're going to have a deck of cards and you're not going to need to amplify that image on a screen. Everybody can see it. You can see everybody. There's no like huge lights in your faces that's blocking your view of the audience. You're just maybe sitting or standing at a table and people are kind of around you. And then you've got anything in between. You've got stand up magic or parlor magic that some people call it, which is it's just all depends on the size of the rooms and the things that you're the way you're handling your props. Close up magic will usually be on a table. Stand up magic, their props will usually be in your hands, not at a table, and you'll be on a stage. Parlor magic is sort of like, you're going to living rooms and you're performing in the quote unquote parlor, if you will. And then illusionist is performing with apparatus. You have mentalism, which is magicians that mainly do mind reading or mind tricks. Like they're not going to get up and do a card trick. They're going to get up there and claim that they can influence your choices and know what you're going to say before you say it. And there's hypnotism, which is I have a lot of thoughts on hypnotism. But that is sort of magic, kind of. Some people could call it that. But yeah, there's a ton of different jargon. Magician is a perfectly fine word to use for every single one of those.
Yeah, Iron asks, what are your thoughts on hypnotism?
I think that if it's hypnotism for entertainment, it's great. I don't want to get hugely into this discussion because I'm sure that some people have had great experiences with it, but I think hypnotism for like therapy or hypnotism and like mediums are kind of lumped into the same box. Hypnotism works on you if you believe it's going to work on you. I don't think it's super real. And then the same thing with mediums and psychics. Like it's going to work on you if you already believe in it, that sort of thing.
Oseki asks, have you ever messed up a magic trick on stage? If so, how did you deal with it?
Actually, yesterday, I mean, all the time. The answer is all the time. But yesterday is a great example. I have a card trick, or it's not a card trick. It's a trick. It uses animal flashcards and stuffed animals. But what's supposed to happen is, do I have one near? I have one in the other room. The stuffed animals, half giraffe, half zebra. And what's supposed to happen is I make a big joke about. Well, let me back up for a second because I know what's happening in my head, but you guys don't. So I have two people from different sides of the audience pick an animal flashcard, and I say that they're going to match. Then I reveal that they don't. One is a giraffe, one is a zebra, and they're like, "Oh, you messed up, whatever, blah blah blah." But then I pull out the stuffed animal. I'm like, "Okay, I was right all along." It's like an 8-minute routine. It's more fun than it sounds. But yesterday I go and I'm like, "Oh, you got the zebra. Wonderful. That's perfect. That's exactly what I thought was going to happen." Then I took the other card from them and I looked at it and it was an iguana and I had no idea what to do with that. So sometimes when a trick works or doesn't work in this phenomenal of a way, you don't have an out. Um so I just apologized to the audience and said, "Sorry, sometimes magic tricks don't work. I messed up on this one. I'm fully going to admit it. But if you guys are cool, let's move along, get to the next one." So you just have to be honest and treat your audience with respect in if something like that happens. But also, the audience doesn't know where you're going with a magic trick. So in another time that I have messed up, if it's just like a regular card trick, there is a deck of cards called the Invisible Deck. And you can Google it right now. You can get one for like $10. But what it does is it lets you go to any card named, and it's the only card that's turned over in the deck. So if you just have one of those in your back pocket and you mess up a card trick, you can play it off. You're like, oh, wait, okay, yeah, the card's not in here because it's in this other deck of cards I have. Face the other way from all of them. What was your card? And then they'll tell you like, "Oh, the 9 of hearts," and you're like, "Yeah, perfect." So you just show them the 9 of hearts. Sometimes a trick messes up so badly that you can't do anything about it, and other times you're just able to get it out of it if you're prepared enough because they don't know what's going to happen.
All right. Uh, Iron asks, what stages/venues would be on your bucket list to perform on?
Ooh, that is a great question. I really, really want to perform on Disney Cruise Lines. I think that would be so fun. I know people who have performed on Disney Cruise Lines. It would be amazing. I'd love to perform on Penn and Teller's Fool Us, the TV show. In terms of specific stages, though, like those, I guess I don't know if those are necessarily stages I'd love to perform on. I mean, a giant arena show would be fun, but no, that's not necessarily any particular stage. I just like doing magic. When I do tours, I go to rooms that are 50 seats to 300 seats, And those are the rooms that I love performing in. So any theater in any town in the country that is that size theater, that's on my bucket list.
Aiden asks, what kind of tricks do you specialize in?
So I do what I call comedy family magic. When you think of comedy magic, the joke that I like to say is, well, if the jokes weren't funny, at least there was magic, and if the magic didn't work, at least it was funny. You know, so it's a little bit of both. I like to make sure that the magic is powerful and good and like awe-inspiring and miracles and whatever you can say about magic. But they are buying tickets to a magic show, so I like to make sure that they are getting a really good magical experience. But at the same time, I love stand-up comedy, and I'm never gonna get on a stage and just do 10 minutes of stand-up comedy with a card trick at the end. Like, the props will inform the comedy, but I definitely write jokes into all of the shows I do, and I really like to think I'm like a Disney or a Pixar movie. I've got jokes that are in there for the kids, I've got jokes that are in there for the grown-ups. I call myself a family magician because I don't think that I am just a kid's magician. You put me at an elementary school, I will do a great show, but if I'm doing my family show, it won't work for an audience of all children. I can also do corporate magic, or just magic for adults. But if I'm doing my family show, which is my favorite show to perform, it won't work for the all adult audience. So I do what I can what we called parlor magic before, which is an audience of about 50 to 300 people, and I don't necessarily know if I specialize in any tricks like card tricks or a specific prop. I just like to get really good at the 11 tricks that are in my show and practice other stuff, and if it goes into my show, I just make sure I'm really good at it. Um, there is a magician, I think it was Bill Malone that said this. He goes, every beginner will come up and tell you about the trick they just learned and tell you that they know 100 different card tricks. And I'll reply, yeah, I know 8, but I know the hell out of them. And I've taken that to heart. I just want to get really, really good at my show.
Austin Neri asks, have you ever had to deal with audience members heckling or being upset with you in some way?
Absolutely. More when I was starting than now. Now the heckling is all in good nature because I sort of encourage it. It's not heckling negatively. It's a positive heckling. It's a really weird way to describe it, but I have created my show where I like to get calls out so I can do response. I love being able to talk to the audience, and I make it very clear from the first routine. Like, there is a moment of magic and I'll get a polite applause, and from that moment 2 minutes into the show, I go, "That's it. I just performed a miracle and all you got is a little clapping." Like, it's very adversarial, but I say it with a smile and a laugh. So I think that people get that I'm coming from a good place of wanting to have fun. But in the beginning, I have definitely had to deal with hecklers. There was one, it was at a company party or a company holiday party for a real estate company, like their end of year holiday party. And halfway through the show, I guess I was doing just such a bad job, that one of them just looked at me and said, "Have you done this before?" It was definitely made me go home that night and, like, think about some things. But that was, like, in the first year I was doing magic, and if hecklers suck, but, oh well, you gotta deal with it. We're getting on stage, and luckily I do perform for a lot of families, so most of the hecklers that I get are kids, and it's just because 'cause they're excited. Tankinator. Absolutely, I did one yesterday. Where were you?
Ticketer
Send
asks, I live in Boulder. How can I
Yeah.
come to see your magic show?
Yeah, send me a DM, Tankinator. I got you.
Do you want to link your website in the chat here or no?
Yeah, sure, I can do that. There, but send me a DM here. You can send me an email there, but if you send me a DM here, I'll see it right now. And Austin area is correct. I don't advertise my shows on my website. They were yelling at me earlier about I need to do that. Um, but so maybe I'll start. But I do a monthly show in Boulder. Though this year the format is changing a little bit. I talked about how I don't do really card tricks or close up magic. In March, I'm doing a 2-week run in Boulder. So a run of shows, meaning Wednesday through Sunday. I'm going to be doing a show every night, and on Saturday I'm doing 2 shows. So I'll be doing a sort of residency at a theater in Boulder where they will be close-up shows, only 30 tickets available to each show, and it's going to be more aimed at an older audience. We're saying 16 plus for the ages of people being able to get into the theater. So that's going to be a new experience for me, and I'm really excited to try it out. But that means that that was actually just confirmed yesterday when I did a New Year's Eve show at that theater. But now I have to write and practice a close-up show before March. So to answer the earlier question of how long does it take to work on a new routine for the show? Well, hopefully it takes less than 3 months to write an entirely new show.
All right, we're about done here, but I'll end it with one last question here. If someone was interested in becoming a magician or maybe just a performer in general, what do you think they should be doing right now?
I'm going to take that question in 2 parts real quick because you said performer in general, but you also said magician. Both of the answers involve, I think you have to go take an improv class. No matter what kind of performer you are going to be, an improv class will not only be really fun, it will help you so much in any sort of stage performance you're going to do. And then, you've got to take specialized classes. If you want to be an actor, you're obviously going to have to take acting classes. If you want to do musicals, you're going to have to take song and dance. I've done small parts in plays before. It's really fun. It's not for me. I don't need to pursue that. I like doing magic. But if you want to be a magician specifically, I know I used to work for them, but go to vanishingink.com. They have some free magic tricks that you can download to get into it. They have some free ebooks. And also, if you really want to start in magic and you're here or you're watching this, I know we upload these to YouTube. If anybody ever stumbles upon this and wants to get into magic, send me a DM here on Discord. Go to my website, bradencarlisle.com, and send me an email. You can send a message right from my website. I will help you out so much. I will give you so much information that you might even be overwhelmed. I have ebooks on ebooks on ebooks that I can give out to you guys. If you want to get into magic, please talk to me. I love helping new magicians. I think it's so much fun. It's a great hobby. And if you get good enough to turn it into a job, you might regret it, but it will be fun.
And for those on YouTube, his Discord username is Braden Carlisle.
Yep.
I said last question, but one more.
Sure.
What do you love about your job? What do you love about what your performance is?
My favorite thing about magic is that I get to bring smiles to so many people. I said in that slideshow at the beginning that I have performed for over 20,000 audience members just in the Boulder Magic Show, more if you count all of the private parties I've done. Um, to me, that's 20,000 smiles that I've brought into the world. And it makes me so happy to think that people and of course it is the way I make my living, so I do have to think about the money aspect. But even without knowing that the money goes to me, right? People will pay money to go see my show. That's how much they value it. That is how much value that I'm bringing to their lives, is that they will pay money to go see a show that I wrote, I star in, I perform, and they leave. And when they leave and they want to take pictures with me, it just means the world to me that I did such a good job. They want to remember the moment.
Wonderful. All right, that's about all. Next week, yeah, Drake for Braden here. Thank you so much, Braden. Next week, I know they're in the audience right now, but we have Fang Olives. Here's the event right here, and it is still tentative. We might have to cancel that if something comes up for Fango. I'm hoping it's Fango. I'm sorry. Michael, yeah, you're a little late. And the week after that, we have Iron, who I think, well, yeah, is also here, who is an NDT tech. So Fango is a EV journalist. They're great. Yes, CES is happening, so there may be something EV related going on. So then we have to skip, which is fine. That's about all we have. If you are interested in doing this yourself, there's an interest form I'll put in this chat here. Fill it out if you feel like you're interested in talking about your job. We don't just care about like interesting jobs like magician here. If you are a fast food worker, if you're anything else like that, we care about you too. Low skill, high skill, we'd like to hear from you. That's about all we have. Again, thank you to Braden, and let's wrap this up here.
Ooh, before we go, I want to point out Michael's in chat. I watched his lecture last night on YouTube. It was a great lecture. If you haven't seen it, you should go watch it on YouTube.
It was great. Thank you, Michael, for doing that last week. All right, thank you guys. Have a great night, everyone.